When Britain's maps began to fade, its memory refused to follow. An empire that once painted continents red now learned to disappear in inkless ways. The sun no longer shone on colonies, but it never quite set on secrets. And in the twilight between empire and relevance, something silent and powerful began to grow. The 20th century opened with telegrams, telegraphs, and tremors of technology. Information traveled faster than armies, and Britain recognized advantage hiding in velocity. Power was no longer measured in miles conquered, but in messages intercepted. To rule the world again, one needed only to know it first. From dusty outposts of India to polished corridors of London, surveillance replaced sovereignty. Colonial officers turned analysts, diplomats turned decoders, explorers turned informants in tailored suits. The empire discovered that data, like spice or gold, could be harvested and traded. And thus, espionage became the new imperial commerce. When war came again, it rewarded Britain's obsession with listening. While others fought with tanks, Britain fought with typewriters, ciphers, and sound waves. At Bletchley Park, mathematicians transformed secrecy into strategy, code into currency. Each German message decrypted felt like a deposit into survival's account. Alan Turing and his colleagues weren't merely saving lives, they were inventing a new economy. They proved that information, when processed precisely, could yield victory faster than factories could. The war ended, but their arithmetic outlived the gunfire. Britain had found its next empire, built not on land, but logic. After 1945, while America mastered manufacturing, Britain mastered manipulation of meaning. Its colonies vanished, yet its cables reached far, the threads of telephony and telegrams binding the globe. Outwardly diminished, inwardly networked, the island re-emerged as the world's quiet switchboard. Intelligence became its new export, invisible yet invaluable. MI5 and MI6 expanded like twin lungs of secrecy, inhaling whispers, exhaling stability. Their agents traveled with briefcases instead of bayonets, contracts instead of cannons. Every embassy doubled as an exchange, every diplomat a discreet dealer in data. In Whitehall, economics and espionage began sharing the same vocabulary, leverage. The Cold War crowned Britain's subtle supremacy. Washington possessed weapons, Moscow possessed fear. Britain possessed information flowing between them. Its agents sat in the shadows of both superpowers, fluent in ambiguity. Knowledge was neutrality monetized, and Britain traded it beautifully. Cambridge lecture halls became recruitment centers for quiet brilliance and quiet betrayal. Men in tweed discovered their country could be sold in silence, sometimes patriotically. The double agents of the 50s didn't just betray governments, they priced ideology. Even treason became transaction, proof that morality could be market-tested. Meanwhile, the City of London learned to launder more than money, it laundered motives. Financial secrecy blossomed beside political secrecy, each nurturing the other's necessity. The same banks that financed empire now financed espionage indirectly. Accounts and aliases blurred until identity itself became negotiable. From the Caribbean to the Channel Islands, offshore trusts mirrored offshore truths. Britain's scattered remnants became refuges for invisible wealth and invisible work. Every former colony offered a convenient jurisdiction for things best left unspoken. The empire had not died, it had diversified. Inside the Bank of England, economists studied markets. Across the river, analysts studied minds. Both departments measured confidence as currency, panic as contagion, prediction as profit. The difference between finance and intelligence grew smaller with each shared equation. Numbers were numbers, whether forecasting inflation or infiltration. During Suez in 1956, Britain learned humiliation publicly but practiced adaptation privately. The world saw retreat. The archives reveal recalibration. The empire of ships sank, the empire of surveillance surfaced. Defeat taught discretion, the only skill every future empire would require. By the 60s, cables carried confessions faster than conscience could follow. Britain installed listening stations where colonies once stood: Cyprus, Hong Kong, Gibraltar. It mapped the planet again, this time by wavelength, not wind. The cartographers of empire became cartographers of communication. Signals intelligence SIGINT emerged as inheritance of imperial geography. The same sea routes once charted for trade now guided undersea cables for control. Where tea once travelled, telephone lines now hummed with intercepted intimacy. The empire had gone wireless, but not weightless. Information poured into Cheltenham's listening labyrinth GCHQ, cathedral of captured chatter. There, thousands of analysts translated static into strategy, gossip into global policy. Each intercepted phrase was potential leverage, each silence potential sale. And so, the economy of secrecy compounded like interest. Politicians justified surveillance as defense, but defense soon became definition. To protect the realm was to predict reality before anyone else could. The distinction between spying and forecasting blurred until meaningless. Britain had turned intelligence into insurance. While America built the bomb, Britain built the blueprint for plausible deniability. It preferred manipulation over might, discretion over declaration, whispers over warheads. Its agencies became invisible stockbrokers trading futures measured in favor, influence, or immunity. Power now meant knowing which secret to release and when. In the city, financiers admired the symmetry. Risk analysis mirrored espionage almost perfectly. Both demanded patience, pattern, and nerve. A banker hedged against markets. An analyst hedged against mistakes. Both monetized uncertainty. The shadow and the skyline belonged to the same mathematics. By the 70s, information was capital and London its quiet exchange. Corporate espionage, diplomatic leaks, and political blackmail intersected like train lines at Paddington. The post-imperial nation had become the broker of ambiguity. It no longer conquered others, it translated them. Computers entered the picture, glowing softly in government basements like mechanical conscience. They recorded, sorted, and simulated entire nations in lines of logic. Britain's advantage deepened. Its empire of intelligence learned memory without mercy. For the first time, secrecy had storage. Each decade expanded this hidden economy. Journalists chased scandals, yet the machinery remained unseen, adaptive, indispensable. The nation's most profitable export was not goods, but guidance disguised as friendship. From Washington to Riort, clients queued for British discretion. Spies turned consultants, consultants turned lobbyists, lobbyists turned legends. The public imagined James Bond. The reality was spreadsheets, signals, and sleepless accuracy. The empire of intelligence wore Savile Row and spoke in acronyms. And it prospered quietly, exactly as designed. By the late 20th century, Britain no longer needed colonies, it owned context. Every negotiation, every summit, every scandal carried fingerprints of its analysis. It could not dictate outcomes, but it could price them better than anyone. Information had become the world's most stable currency. The Bank of England and GCHQ now shared more than geography. They shared philosophy. Both institutions managed expectation, adjusted perception, and stabilized belief through data. One guarded value, the other guarded narrative. Together they guarded civilization's illusion of control. This partnership became Britain's final empire, completely invisible, endlessly profitable. And yet, every empire carries the seed of exposure. As the digital age approached, secrecy faced its first true competitor, transparency. Leaks replaced diplomacy. Hackers replaced saboteurs. Truth itself became weaponized. Britain's greatest asset, control of information, was about to be tested publicly. But that confrontation belonged to another century. For now, the island slept soundly, rich in rumors and relevance. The shadow empire had matured, unseen yet unmistakable in consequence. Where gold once glittered, Intelligence now glowed cold, constant, quietly British. The Cold War was a theatre of the invisible, and Britain played its part beautifully. While superpowers clashed in missiles and manifests, London clashed in meetings and misdirection. The pound had fallen, but the price of British information had never been higher. Knowledge became the only commodity that multiplied when shared carefully. Embassies buzzed like stock floors, trading whispers instead of shares. Every file carried weight, every rumour yielded interest. The empire of intelligence no longer occupied land, it occupied language. Whoever defined truth first won profit long before proof arrived. Across the Atlantic, Washington amassed weapons. Moscow amassed ideology. Britain amassed access. MI6 and its quiet network of consultants turned information into arbitrage. It was not espionage, it was early globalization with better tailoring. Secrecy had become service industry, and Britain was its polite provider. Signals from satellites flowed through GCHQ's humming circuits like currents of capital. Each intercept could alter markets before morning, shift currencies before cabinet briefings. The line between spying and speculation blurred so smoothly no one noticed it vanish. Information moved from classified to profitable without changing form. In the city, bankers learned to price uncertainty the way analysts price threat. Insurance models borrowed from intelligence methodologies: scenario, probability, containment, cover. Both disciplines sold confidence to clients who feared the unknown. Thus, risk itself became the empire's renewable resource. By the mid-60s, Britain was broker of both money and meaning. Its spy stations and offshore banks formed one continuous circuit of secrecy. Funds moved through the same channels as files. The fees were identical: silence and speed. Power no longer required armies, it required encryption keys. In Basel, Geneva, and Nassau, British lawyers and former agents built financial havens. They called them trusts, though trust was precisely what they evaded. The Caymans handled capital, Cheltenham handled context. The sun had set on colonies, but rose brightly on tax havens. Every scandal fed the machine it seemed to threaten. Profumo, Cambridge 5, Burgess and Maclean, each betrayal proved the system's necessity. Transparency was briefly demanded, then quietly outsourced to committees that never met. Britain remained the world's most trusted liar. Meanwhile, technology tightened its embrace. Early computers at Cheltenham could listen faster than humans could translate. The empire's new weapon was pattern recognition, finding truth in noise. GCHQ called it efficiency. Philosophers called it omniscience with overhead. During the oil crisis of the 70s, espionage and economics merged completely. Intelligence reports predicted supply. Traders positioned fortunes an hour later. The information loop closed. Knowledge no longer flowed into policy. It flowed into profit. Britain's shadow economy had found its perfect feedback system. Spies no longer risked lives, they risked markets. A whisper in Whitehall could shift billions before breakfast. And the nation, having lost its empire, found solace in its spreadsheet of secrets. Dominion replaced by data, governance by guidance. In Langley and Moscow, superpowers suspected each other. In London, they both invested. Britain was the neutral broker of mutual paranoia. Its allies trusted it, because its betrayals were so beautifully balanced. Everyone won something, mostly deniability. The 80s arrived wearing silicon and self-confidence. Thatcher's Britain merged corporate aggression with Cold War discipline. MI6 networked with multinationals, GCHQ with global telecoms. The empire of intelligence had gone corporate, profit now a patriotic performance. Financial markets deregulated, and data markets followed. Information became asset class, classified and commodified simultaneously. The city and the service shared a singular motto: control the flow, and you control the future. Britain excelled at plumbing the unseen. Then came the internet, a revolution disguised as connection. At first, Spies celebrated. More signals, more sources, more scope. Soon they realized their advantage was vanishing into volume. When everyone knows everything, who owns anything? The old guard at Cheltenham panicked politely. They invested in algorithms the way Victorians invested in railways. Data became the new colony, endless, unruly, rich in pattern and potential. Britain sent spiders instead of soldiers to map it. Corporations joined the Crown's network uninvited but indispensable. Telecom giants, social platforms, credit bureaus all fed the same appetite for insight. Spying was outsourced to analytics, control became subscription model. The shadow economy of intelligence had finally gone mainstream. During the War on Terror, Britain's role was reaffirmed, rebranded, repaid. Every alliance sought its archives, its algorithms, its experience in ambiguity. London no longer needed to command, it consulted and collected instead. Even Empire's ghost could invoice. By the mid-2000s, GCHQ's antennae listened to the internet like stethoscopes against the planet. Each ping, each packet, each password was potential pattern, potential profit. The lines between national security and market security fused completely. What was protected was no longer people, it was predictability. And through it all, Britain remained modest in public, magnificent in metadata. While others boasted of power, it monetized it quietly through consulting, contracts, and compliance. Secrecy had become civility. Surveillance had become service. The empire had learned how to smile while it recorded. The 21st century began not with a bang, but a notification. The empire of intelligence, long invisible, suddenly found itself everywhere and nowhere. Data had replaced territory. Connectivity replaced conquest. Awareness replaced armies. Britain, once ruler of seas, now ruled streams of information, not water. GCHQ's antennas no longer pointed skyward, they listened inward, toward the heartbeat of civilization's cloud. Every signal, every search, every whisper through glass was archived, analyzed, and algorithmically understood. The old empire's habit persisted. Know the world before the world knows you. Only now, the colonies were coded, not conquered. In Cheltenham's vast circular complex nicknamed the Donator servers, hum like mechanical monks. Inside them, centuries of ambition reassembled themselves into algorithms that could predict thought. The British gift for understatement had evolved into the art of omniscience. Surveillance wasn't intrusion anymore, it was infrastructure. The line between spy and statistician vanished entirely. Analysts wore hoodies, not suits. Their weapons were models, not guns. They measured moods, monitored markets, mapped entire societies by metadata. Where empire once marched, now it merely monitored. Yet, behind the digital decorum, an old question resurfaced: who guards the watchers? The answer, as always, was the same: trust the tradition, not transparency. Britain had perfected secrecy so completely that even its reforms felt classified. It ruled silence like a native tongue. When Edward Snowden's revelations hit in 2013, the world gasped. Britain merely blinked. GCHQ's role in global surveillance shocked no one who understood history's patterns. The island had always been listening. It had simply changed its microphones. Outrage abroad translated into quiet pride at home. The empire's ghost had adapted to democracy, wearing legality as its latest disguise. Under the banner of national security, every dataset became sacred duty. Every intercepted byte, a confession filed politely under counter-terrorism. The shadow economy of intelligence had gone legitimate and lucrative. Contracts flowed between state and corporation, merging governance with Google. Private firms became public assets. Public agencies became private clients. Secrets now circulated like currency, licensed, leased, leveraged. Britain didn't need to own the networks. It simply needed access. Every government since Thatcher had understood this unspoken bargain. Regulation was rhetoric, reality was relationship. From Silicon Valley to Singapore, London's intermediaries whispered in every digital ear. The empire no longer ruled the map, it managed the metadata behind it. Meanwhile, the City of London became espionage's financial twin once more. Banks traded derivatives, spies traded data. Both worshipped volatility. Algorithmic trading mirrored algorithmic targeting, each predicting behavior for profit or protection. The machine had learned morality's mathematics. As artificial intelligence matured, Britain saw reflection, not revolution. After all, it had invented the machine that could think. Turing's ghost still lingered. Now, AI served as both servant and successor to his silent empire. It automated the art of insight, the illusion of intelligence industrialized. Predictive policing, algorithmic risk analysis, automated espionage, all born from the British blueprint. The empire of intelligence had become the empire of inference. It didn't watch you, it watched what you might become. Anticipation replaced observation, and probability replaced proof. Yet with precision came paranoia. When systems know everything, they begin to question their creators. Governments feared leaks, citizens feared lies, corporations feared nothing but transparency. Truth itself became encrypted, accessible only to those who defined it. Britain adapted again, mastering modesty as strategy. While America argued ethics and China expanded control, Britain refined calibration. It became the conscience of surveillance, moralizing methods it had pioneered. Its genius was never invention, but interpretation. GCHQ's partnerships expanded across borders and businesses alike. From cybersecurity to counter-disinformation, its reach blurred the line between protection and persuasion. Every cyber attack yielded opportunity. Every breach justified another layer of access. Fear remained the most dependable funding model. In the digital marketplace, Britain's spies became consultants again, this time to the world. Training regimes, encryption standards, counter-espionage workshops, it exported expertise, like Empire once exported tea. The modern colony was a client, the new loyalty contractual. Intelligence had become industry, ethics its marketing department. Behind the glass of Cheltenham's control rooms, the old arrogance softened into awe. Analysts watched humanity through screens, billions of lives streaming simultaneously. Empires once mapped the unknown, now they merely managed the inevitable. Knowledge had become omnipresence and omnipresence, exhaustion, but the machine never sleeps. It hums through nights of geopolitical quiet, archiving chaos before it erupts. In every major crisis, economic, digital, or military, Britain's signals surface first. The island, once small, remains the eye of civilization's storm. For even as power shifts eastward, the West still runs on British logic. Its systems, laws, and surveillance bear the fingerprints of the empire's careful engineers. Every government that spies owes royalty to the architects of discretion. The British didn't just invent intelligence, they institutionalized invisibility. Today, the empire of intelligence is everywhere yet nowhere to name. It lives in firewalls, in policies, in polite accents on international panels. It hides inside apps, treaties, and anonymous startups. You can't topple an empire you can't locate. And perhaps that's the point. Empires of land fall with noise. Empires of information fade with elegance. Their borders are invisible, their rulers interchangeable, their legacy eternal. The British learned long ago that power lasts longer when it whispers. Still, silence has its price. Every secret stored becomes a weight, every algorithm a mirror of its maker. The machine remembers too much, and memory, once perfect, becomes prison. Even the empire of intelligence must someday confront the burden of omniscience. When that reckoning arrives, Britain will again do what it always does best: adapt. It will audit its conscience, rebrand its methods, and sell its solutions to others. Its survival has never depended on innocence, only on interpretation. It will call evolution what others call exposure. And history will repeat its favorite irony. The first empire ruled by sea, the second by finance, the third by secrecy. Each claimed civilization, each concealed control, each collapsed gracefully into consultancy. Britain never stopped ruling, it simply learned to invoice invisibility. For in the end, intelligence is not about knowing, but believing. Every network, every nation, every algorithm runs on faith disguised as fact. The British understood this centuries ago, when they traded gold for credit, control for confidence. Today, they trade certainty for secrets and still profit from both. The empire survives not in its territory, but in its temperament. Polite, precise, persistent, and profoundly invisible, it teaches the world to watch without being seen, to lead without being loud. The shadow never needed sunlight to exist, it needed only structure. So if you ever wonder where the empire went, look closer at the code. It lives in every firewall, every encrypted phrase, every polite denial. Its anthem is silence, its currency is comprehension, and its throne still, quietly is London. If this story changed how you see secrecy, power, and the invisible empires of our age, remember knowledge was never free, and silence was never neutral. Subscribe for more untold histories of how Britain's ghosts still guide our digital world. Because the next empire won't conquer nations, it will control information.